Welcome to another OU Insider Under the Visor Sooners post-game podcast. My name is Brandon Drum. I'm here with Parker Thune. Oklahoma, 34-19 victory over Tulane, a good Tulane team. The defense played well for about 85% of the game. About 15% was not so great. Offense with about two bad quarters and two good quarters, but better than Houston. And we're going to dive into all that, dive into Jackson Arnold. We're going to dive into the defense, Danny Stutzman, R. Mason Thomas, Billy Bowman. We're going to dive into the offensive line injuries, the wide receiver injuries. We're going to discuss all that, plus some of the post-game presser stuff that we got from Brent Venables and more in this post-game podcast. But first, do we have ads that we got to take care of, Parker?
Yes. Let's get that out of the way right now. This episode of the OU Insider Under the Visor postgame podcast, folks, is brought to you by our great friends at HelloFresh. What is HelloFresh, you ask? Well, with HelloFresh, you get farm fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. Skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit. It's something both Brandon and I use quite a bit this time of year to cut down on meal prep time. It's an easy way to make sure that you can eat quick without sacrificing nutrition. Plans change, life gets busy. That's why HelloFresh lets you easily customize your delivery from week to week. You can tailor everything to your schedule by adjusting your delivery date, or you can skip a week when you're not able to cook at home. There's always new flavors to explore. With an ever-changing menu of 50 recipes to choose from every week, just pick your meals and your delivery date. It's that simple. Now, for free breakfast for life, go to HelloFresh.com/free OU Insider. One free breakfast item per box while your subscription is active. That's free breakfast for life just by going to HelloFresh.com/free OU Insider. HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. And also a reminder, folks, if you haven't downloaded the Autograph app, do so right now. Start earning rewards just for being a fan and reading and listening to Oklahoma content. Link.ag.fan/boomer is the link you're going to want to follow. Again, link.ag.fan/boomer and use promo code boomer to get started today for free.
There you go. All right. Where to begin? I'm assuming.
Let's begin with the good. How about that?
All right.
I'm gonna go ahead and take the license to not start at the beginning. Let's start at the end because R. Mason Thomas took over this football game in the fourth quarter. And to me, Brandon, if we want to talk about big picture takeaways here, I felt like I learned very little about this team today against Tulane. To me, there are a lot of things for which the jury's still out as you head into that matchup with Tennessee. But what's undeniable, now that you got to see it today in its full force, is that a healthy R. Mason Thomas, when he has the opportunity to just pin his ears back and unleash hell off the edge and rush the passer as he is so adept at doing, you feel his impact. And the Sooners felt it in the fourth quarter because he was a game wrecker, an absolute game wrecker. 3 sacks, a forced fumble. He recovered that fumble on the strip sack, and a couple of batted down passes as well. Just absolute terror off the edge in the fourth quarter for Oklahoma. That's the type of performance that you're going to have, not just from R. Mason Thomas, but the type of individual effort that you're going to probably have to have from several members of your defensive unit week in and week out going forward. So that was encouraging to see from the junior defensive end.
Yeah, he has one of the quickest first steps I think you'll see in the SEC off the edge. I don't think that's debatable. Now that he's healthy, I think it's more a matter of experience and really understanding the game, because you have to take in consideration, sure, he played a lot in 2022, but he played a lot at like 210 pounds on the edge, 215 pounds on the edge. Like he was light in the britches, super light in the britches. He is now around 250 pounds. He's added a ton of weight since, the 2022 season. And everybody thought that he was going to have this coming out year last season, and ankle injuries all season long, just nagging nagging. Parker, I can go back and I can vividly remember watching R. Mason Thomas and Miguel Chavis. You probably do too. Last fall camp when he was all taped up with these, and Miguel Chavis was watching him just do lateral movements, right? Like they were off doing something else with the edges, and he came over to work with him one on one to make sure, he was at least getting better and better and more prepared for the season to start. His ankle got better, and then what happened? He really screwed up his other one because he had, I guess defaulted to his other ankle during all fall camp, and it kind of the wear and tear ruined it, and he lost a season because of it. So he came back last year in the Alamo Bowl, and he played phenomenal in that game, like phenomenal in that game. And but it didn't resonate the first two games of the season. I don't know why. I can't put a finger on what the issue is because the defense has looked really well. The edge guys have just been they've played well. They played well. They just haven't been like just out there in your face like defensive line, linebacker, and the secondary, right? Like the big plays have all come from those positions. Well, not anymore. Everybody's been screaming for Miguel Chavis has to find this guy that's going to make plays that's not named Ethan Downs. Somebody besides Ethan Downs has got to make a play. Well, here walks in R. Mason Thomas, and here you go. You've got a guy with 3 sacks in a game and a forced fumble and fumble recovery. That's out, and he got a batted down ball as well. That's covering the gambit as far as defensive end goes. Like that's like hitting for the cycle in baseball if you're a defensive end, right?
Yeah, he did a little bit of everything. And that defense, man, that defense was strong once
Yeah.
again today. Not perfect, still things that could be improved upon.
13
I
points.
I do not like Kenai Walker as a man cornerback. I think he's all right in
No.
zone. I think he is a very poor man cornerback and should have been
That's
beaten.
being nice on the poor part. He
Yes,
got
I
burnt a
understand that.
bunch.
I did my best to tone down my language there. He
Yeah.
should have been beat for a couple of long touchdown
Couple of
passes today.
touchdowns.
Yes. Yes. Boy, OU was very, very fortunate that
Yeah.
Darian Mensah didn't deliver either of those balls where they needed to be delivered in order to go the distance. Yeah, but by the same token, anytime Kanai Walker is in man, generally he's all right.
You mean
He can
zone,
hold his own.
zone, zone.
Or zone, yes, excuse me. When he's in zone, he can hold his own. You put him in man, oh boy,
Yeah.
borderline liability. Sammy Omasigo was awesome. He
Yeah.
had another strong performance. He's very quietly, he hasn't been all over the headlines, but he's very quietly had a strong 3 weeks to open the year.
Mm.
And his number got called a lot more today in
Yeah.
Kendall Dolby's absence. A lot of people asking what's up with Dolby. Look, it's not something we should go in the weeds on. It's not suspension. Let's just clear that up.
No.
It is something that should reasonably only hold him out for this game. He ought to be back against Tennessee. So good to see Samuel Masigo making plays today.
How about this, Parker? I'll help you out here.
Okay.
Um, Kendall Dolby should be able to head back. Should be able to head back into the starting position
Very nice.
once he's cleared.
Very nice. So we saw Sammy in that spot quite a bit. Woody Washington also played some cheater today. We got the first Eli Bowen experience. He saw the field at cornerback. Billy Bowman had that pinball pick. But what I think is really interesting, Brandon, is that Tulane had 2 offensive scoring drives. The third touchdown, of course, came on the pick 6 from Jackson Arnold. We'll get around to that. But both of their touchdowns came on 4th and goal. So even when Tulane scored, and on both of those plays, mind you, they were plays that very easily could have gone the other direction. Billy Bowman came 3 inches from getting a fingertip on that ball in the back of the end zone that was caught by Reggie Brown for Tulane's first touchdown.
Yeah.
And then it was a bang bang play. That's exactly what Zach Alley and Brent Venables called it in the third quarter when Tulane got on the board again. It was 4th and goal. It was Mekhi Hughes that got to the pylon, got to the goal line, and I mean the nose of that football and nothing more got over the plane on 4th and goal with Kenai Walker and Billy Bowman meeting him at the stripe there. And so the Sooners were that close, Brandon. And, I don't want to sound like Lincoln Riley here, but they were that close to being able to
We're
keep
close. We're
Tulane
close.
off the scoreboard offensively entirely. So all in all, a very strong effort by that unit against a really, really talented quarterback in Darian Mensah and some really talented skill position guys on the offensive side of the ball for Tulane. So you're certainly walking away encouraged by what the defense accomplished and has accomplished to this point in the season.
Yeah, I gotta say, you want to know who played really well and like nobody talks about? Nobody talks about just what he brings to the table as far as he's a different body type at this position. And when you play teams in the SEC, you're gonna need this dude to be in there with Danny Stutzman, and that's Kobe McKenzie.
Yeah.
Like he played really well. I think it's kind of under. He made a few plays in the run game where I was like, wow, like that's why that's why he played so much today is because Tulane's run game is so dominant and what they do kind of feeds into what Kobe McKenzie is really good at when you talk about playing within the box. And so I thought he played really well. And in the SEC, you're going to need him to play really well because he he fits the SEC more than size wise more than Kip Lewis does. And that's not Kip Lewis has put weight on, but Kobe McKenzie's different. Like he just plays different, right?
Yeah.
As far as like understanding and just having a nose for the ball. That's what Kobe McKenzie does. So I'm really excited for him. This has been a long time coming for him. And to see his playing time and it is just kind of upticked on a really nice trajectory.
Was that his first career start today?
I think
May
it
have been.
was. And I'll tell you this, like his family was on the field after the game. They called me over to say hi and they're so happy. Like they're so happy. Like and they even said they're like it feels good to be in a conference that fits his skill set. And I think it's going to bode well for Oklahoma to be able to play him more. And the more confidence he gets, the better it's going to get. And it just shows the depth and variety that they've built at that linebacker position is just awesome. It's awesome, dude. They can play with anybody because they can throw Kip Lewis out in space and be really good against a spread team. If you want to line up and play double tights and play within that box and play downhill and run zone schemes and all that type of stuff in your run game, we'll throw Kobe McKenzie in there, Brent Venables says, and they're going to be just fine. You put him alongside number 28, it's all right. By the way, that guy's good.
Boy,
Danny Stutzman.
don't take Danny Stutzman for granted. He eclipsed
No.
300 career tackles today.
Goodness gracious.
The list of Oklahoma Sooners football players in the long and storied history of this program that have accomplished that feat, it's not a long list.
Who are they? Just tell people, do you know who they are?
Offhand, I couldn't tell you the entire list. I will quickly pull up the list of Oklahoma.
Let me guess. Teddy Lehman, while you're doing that, Teddy Lehman is one of them, right?
You would
Correct?
presume, yes.
Rocky Kalmus, he started for 3 years.
So here you go.
Okay, go ahead.
Here you go. As of right now, Danny
Boz.
Stutzman, now that Danny Stutzman has eclipsed 300 tackles, there are 19 other guys that have done that.
Oh.
Some of them you wouldn't immediately guess, like Kelly Gregg. Kelly Gregg is on that list.
Oh no, I believe that. If you remember the Red Swarm defense, I remember that.
Yeah, he was a tackle machine, but even so, a defensive tackle. Reggie Kinlaw, another. But the guys at the top of this list are the guys that you expect to be at the top of this list. George Cumby, Jackie Shipp, Travis Lewis. Yes, Rocky. Rod Schote. The Boz is up there. Teddy's 13th all time in career tackles. And then, of course, Leroy and Dewey Selman, both on this list as well.
Wow. So. Is Cedric Jones on that list? Just by chance?
Cedric Jones is not on this list. No.
You know which Cedric Jones I'm talking about.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Dante Jones is on that list.
Well, that
Outstanding
doesn't
linebacker in
shock
the
me
mid
at all.
80s.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that doesn't
So,
shock me.
pretty elite company that Danny Stutzman is now in. And yes, he is the heart and soul of this Oklahoma defense. No question
Hmm.
about it. All told, high marks for the defense today. Not
Yep.
perfect. There's going to be stuff that needs to get cleaned up. Billy Bowman took a couple of bad angles, as Brian noted in our rapid reaction after the game. But all in all, you'll take that performance, and there's certainly something to build on there going
Mhm.
into this game against Tennessee. With some of the looks that Oklahoma was able to create defensively, they were able to get a little bit exotic. And again, that has you feeling, I don't know if optimistic is the right word, but has you feeling like this
Did,
OU defense can create some problems for Nico and Tennessee next week.
did you see the 236 that came out?
Yeah. Yeah.
That was awesome.
Yeah. It was
236. Like, and people, when you say that, and if people don't know what you're talking about, they're like, "What do you mean they only had two defensive linemen?" Okay, well, truth be told, they brought up both the outside backers. They had two inside backers. They brought up kind of your nickel and your outside backer as hybrid offensive linemen, but they had two true D tackles playing the three tech, and essentially just, and it was really exotic because that was a play where it was early in the game and they had like a third and Tulane had like a 3rd and 9, and Samuel Masigo, they thought they were going to have a dump off to the running back off to the home side of the west side of the field, and Mensa drops back and Sammy bells instead of rushes. And when that happened, he took the flats away and it completely screwed up Mensa and everything that he wanted to do, which I thought was just fantastic. And then they brought a blitz from the backside, which made him rush his throw to begin with. So yeah, Allie and Venables really dialed a lot of really nice things up. And look, they dialed things up, but they didn't show a whole lot. I think that's the other thing. That was the intriguing part about this. Like they showed some, but they didn't get crazy with it to
Yeah.
where they still have a whole lot that they can still throw at Tennessee.
There's very obviously an extra gear there that
Yeah.
Oklahoma hasn't used. And it's going to be exciting to see what that gear looks like. And you'd expect to see it next week against Tennessee because at this point in time, Brandon, it could be argued, and I might be willing to argue it. That could be the most potent offense you will face all season. So you're going to
Yeah, that's
need,
probably true.
yeah, you're going to need to make sure you are at the absolute top of your game. You know what else I'll bring up before we switch gears here? You know who's on the field on a lot of third downs today?
Eli Bowen.
No, not Eli. Perhaps he was. That's not the one I'm thinking of. PJ was on the field
PJ was. Yes, he
almost
was.
every single third down where it was a passing down. And so that shows you. And people were wondering first two games, why haven't I seen a ton of PJ? We mentioned the banged up ankles, but that right there tells you there is trust in PJ more so than a bunch of other guys in that defensive end
Mm-hmm.
room to get to the quarterback in passing down situations.
Yeah.
That's what he's great at. He's still growing into a skill set as a full-fledged every down defensive end, but you know he can rush that passer, and that's what they're counting on him to do, and will continue to.
Yeah, he's going to be really, really good. I thought Peyton Woolard looked really good rushing the passer today. I thought he caused some havoc, and he didn't really get to connect, but
Yeah,
he's probably credited with quite a few QB hurries or several QB hurries. In the secondary, did you notice that Peyton Bowen didn't really play a whole lot? Like
he did
they
not play a
played
whole lot. No.
no, so he's banged up pretty good. He tried to go, and I talked to somebody after the game. And they're like, "Yeah, man, he just couldn't go. Like he tried." And that's why he fair caught all the punts too, because he just couldn't go. They do believe he will be good to go, like fully Peyton Bowen again for the Tennessee, and I think that's generally what we see Oklahoma building to across the board, right? Venables talked about that. That's going to be such an integral part of how this game next Saturday is going to be played out. Is what does the injuries look like
Yep.
on Friday and Saturday?
Yeah. No, that's 100% true. And there are a lot of guys across this roster that should be on track to return for that game.
Yes.
Branson Hickman, Troy Everett. I thought we were going to see Nick Anderson today. That was the way that things were trending. And lo and behold,
Mhm.
he suits up, warms up, but doesn't see action. Andrell Anthony did not play either. You would think he's another guy that the kid gloves come off next week and he's back to full action.
Mhm.
But uh, as we flip over to the offensive side, Jackson Arnold made plays with his legs,
Oh.
man. It wasn't all there in the passing game, and that's not all on him. The offensive line play was less than stellar for much of the
Mhm.
day. He did not have a great pocket every single time he dropped back. The pick six was ugly. It was
Mhm.
not a throw he should have made, and it got talked about in post game. I think it was Seth Luttrell that said you can't. I forget his
He
exact
said you got to get
verbiage.
vertical. You got to get vertical. You can't. What he said was, is you got to get vertical. You can't make that throw. The second it breaks down, you got to go get what you can get with your legs and move to fight another day. That's what he
Exactly.
said.
Yeah. And so I mean the pick six happened. It is what it is. Nothing you can do about it now. We all understand, right? Bad
Mhm.
throw. That's one Arnold wishes he has back. But protections weren't great. He was victimized again by drops, man. Drops continue to plague this wide receiver core. And it was Deion Burks, too. Deion Burks probably had the most costly drop of the day, one that would have moved the chains for Oklahoma when they were at the time clinging to a 5-point lead. So
Yeah.
it's not as if that's just rooted in inexperience. That Deion Burks is a veteran. Deion Burks is your meal ticket guy at wide receiver. And even he isn't always securing catches. So I would hope those guys spend a lot of time on the jugs machine this week because that can't continue happening. All in all, I thought there was more good than bad from
Yeah.
Arnold today. There was
Mhm.
significantly more good than bad. Again, not to insinuate that it was all good, but especially with what he was able to do on the ground, that 24-yard scramble was a highlight offensively for Oklahoma.
Yeah.
But he rushed for 97 yards, would have cracked 100 if not for that last play where he kind of ran around in the backfield to kill clock and then went down. But rushed for 97 yards, was pretty effective through the air, all things considered, and did what it took to win a football game.
Yeah. He look Jackson overall, and he talked about it. Like he felt like he did a lot better. He's never gonna call out um his receivers or his O line, even though you can sense there's some frustration with the drops. And look, I think people that are box score watchers, they're gonna look at that and they're gonna go, well, he only threw for 169 yards. Much like the Houston game, much like the Temple game, Jackson could probably have had 250 yards plus if there weren't drops or the number of drops that took place, but they happened. And so did the bad passes that he made that were his own miscues, right? Like
Yeah,
those happened. So they all work hand in hand and it all balances out at the end.
and there
Um,
weren't as many of those downfield throws that you felt like he should have made today. There was
no, there was
one.
one,
Yeah,
yeah.
Jaquez Petaway he had open down the
Yep.
field,
They
and if
didn't
he
try to
puts
go downfield much.
no, they really didn't. If he puts that ball on Petaway, that might go for 6 at the
Mhm.
very least. It's going for
Yep.
a big, big chunk gain,
And he
and he
audibled into that too.
yeah, and he threw it behind him. It was
Mhm.
not really close, and so that's the kind of thing that you want to see Arnold sharpen up
Yep.
because you're going to need to hit on those kinds of big plays when you get the opportunities because who knows how many of them you're going to get. You get a guy running open downfield or has a step on his man, you got to be able to put it there
Yeah.
because that's going to be the razor's edge in SEC play. So his final line, 18 of 29, 169 yards, a touchdown and the pick. 14 carries, 97 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground as well.
Yeah.
Again, more good than bad. I will say I don't know if I learned a ton. Kind of like I said at the outset, I don't know if I learned a ton about Oklahoma today. I don't know if I learned a ton about Jackson Arnold today. I don't know if I feel substantially different about him after week 3 as I did after week 2. It's still very much a grade of incomplete. Oklahoma's 3-0 after the non-conference slate. They go into SEC play unscathed as of yet, but I don't feel like I have much of a beat on how I can reasonably expect Jackson Arnold to look next week against Tennessee. That is the proving ground for him in many ways.
Well, I think that I think hmm, I kind of agree with you on the incomplete a little bit. I don't know if I fully agree with you. I think there's more to what we saw today. I think you feel better with his and maybe Latrell as well. With the QB run game, I think you feel pretty good. Now, I don't know that you want to use that the way that they used it and the amount that they used it today, but it worked. And I thought his decision making with the zone reads were fantastic. The 47-yard run,
Yeah.
he made a great read.
That was one of those fool the cameraman ones. And I
Yeah,
know
yeah,
because I was a cameraman
yeah.
on that play and I got fooled.
Yeah, well, I think everybody got fooled. I did for a second too. And then I would even go as far as to say the first touchdown, his reaction, how quick he
Yeah.
reacted to a bad snap. I think that those are the positives that I look at and I think you hold on to and you go, okay, that wasn't happening versus Houston. So there was a step there that he was decisive in what he was doing. Now you would have liked to have had that happen on that pick six because I think it was very similar. Things broke down and instead of running, he tried to force a pass that wasn't there. But he's listed as a sophomore. He's still a freshman. Like let's just call it what it is. He's still a freshman. And so, well, he is. He's only got 3 starts in him, right? 4 starts now, and one of them's only been against like a really good team, and that was Arizona. And he played. Ironically, that's where he played his best ball. So I mean,
Maybe
that's
he's a
the funny
gamer.
part. I don't know. See, that's
Maybe
the
he's a
funny thing.
gamer.
And much like that, I think it's going to be interesting to see how Nico comes in and plays. Right?
Yeah.
I it's going to be tough. I think Tennessee fans are in for a rude awakening. Homeboy hasn't left Knoxville, so
Yes. And they skull dragged Kent State tonight, no doubt about
they
that.
did.
But
They did.
even so, it's going to be a different environment
Yeah.
than what Nico has become accustomed to in his brief tenure as
Long
a
story
collegiate
short,
starter.
yeah. Long story short on Arnold, I think there were a lot, like you said, there was a lot more good.
Yeah.
Just the bad that was there is still really magnified by the fan base because they were drive stoppers, they were scoring stoppers, and you can't do that against Tennessee's of the world.
No,
And
no, you
so
can't leave
that's where they got to improve.
points out there on the field.
Yeah.
Can't happen. You're going to need every single one of those. Um, I thought the good for Arnold tonight was, or I say tonight, I thought the good for Arnold this afternoon certainly starts with the contributions that he made with his legs. And I loved the fact that
Mm-hmm.
he was making dudes miss in the open field. I feel like the
Yeah.
Jackson Arnold that we've seen these first couple starts, when he gets, when he takes off to run, it seems like his inclination is more to lower the shoulder and try to go through a guy or absorb the contact as opposed to just trust in his speed and his agility and his elusiveness in the open field. And he
Yeah.
trusted that today, and that opened things up for some real nice runs, not just the 47-yarder down the sideline where he was untouched for all 47 of those yards, but that 24-yard scramble was fantastic. There were a couple other ones where I think it got you excited watching Jackson Arnold run the way that he did because look, we know the situation for Oklahoma up front. We know that Jackson Arnold can probably expect to get flushed out of the pocket
Yeah.
with some regularity in the weeks ahead. And so
Mm-hmm.
to see him make plays and create off script on the ground with his legs, that was encouraging tonight. Where I guess I'm still kind of apprehensive is the game plan, I think, was a lot of quick game stuff, especially early on.
Yeah.
one read type of action, get the ball out of his hands, trust your mismatches. A guy like Deion Burks, for instance, where more often than not you're going to have him there. Um, I I don't know if I have a great beat yet on how Arnold's going to look when he has to get beyond his first read. And look, you're going to have to get beyond your first read more often against a team like Tennessee than you did against a team like Tulane. And also, there's just got to, and we touched on it, but there's got to be more precision with the downfield throwing. And I know it's a small sample size, and you could chalk it up to a variety of things, but you get opportunities to push the ball downfield. You got to be able to hit those receivers. And so that to
Yeah.
me is where I'm still reserving judgment on Jackson Arnold, but certainly making it known that I can't quite check that box yet. But all in all, as with the team as a whole, there was certainly things to build upon and some really nice moments today for Arnold. Also, some really nice moments for one Taylor Tatum. And I'll say this, and I know Brian Clinton will probably reiterate this in the Oklahoma Drill podcast later in the week. Brian was saying, and I think there's a case to be made, Taylor Tatum ought to be RB1. Now,
Mm.
Javante Barnes was real solid today as well, both as a rusher and a pass catcher. Gavin Sawchuk just can't quite seem to get out of the production rut right now. 6 carries for 16 yards today. We haven't really seen him.
Really
Uh,
weird because he's not that much different in yards per carry than Barnes and Tatum. It's really odd how DeMarco's using that stuff.
yeah,
It's
well, and
weird.
I I'm gonna be curious to see how that gets managed moving forward because you're in a weird spot where it doesn't feel like anybody has very obviously seized the bull by the horns in that backfield picture.
Yeah,
Barnes, I think, on the whole, has done the most good things
but he's had more
through
carries than
through
everybody
three
else.
weeks. Tatum's moments have been there's been some flashes of true stardom from Taylor
Yeah.
Tatum. I think Tatum's moments have been the most exciting,
Mm-hmm.
but certainly then you turn to Gavin Sawchuk and you have to be mindful of the fact that he's got the broadest body of work. So
Yeah.
you have 3 guys that are all vying for RB1 status, and there's no clear leader in the clubhouse right now.
No, there isn't. I'm gonna be honest. The way that the rotations have been used have been super frustrating. Just gonna be like it, and people in the press box were saying similar. They're like, it's really odd how DeMarco's been rotating the running backs. It's almost like, and this rings true for all 3 of them. Like none of them are really in a rhythm because they're so spaced out on their carry. Even I think Barnes has had more of a chance than everybody else because he's been out there more plays. But then you look at Tatum and Sawchuk, and you're like, there's like such a big gap between their carries and their touches that it's like, how do you expect them to get going? And the first drive, Sawchuk looked good. He did. They were moving the chains. They were getting him out in space, swing passes, doing all kinds of stuff, and he was moving the ball, moving the ball, moving the ball. He had one run where I think he got like 2 yards, and it was like, and that's all he got. And then he had another where he got like one. And I I'll have to go back and watch, but I didn't think there was much for anything to gain there as far as offensive line blocking went, run blocking went. But he didn't touch the ball again until the third quarter, again, much like the Houston game. In the second quarter, they brought him in to pass block on a third down, and that was it. It's like, Sawchuk, get in there and pass block. And that's what they would do. They would throw him in there to pass block. You, you can't do that. Like eventually the defense knows what you're going to do. Like you've got to have him in there carrying the rock a little bit. People tend to forget the dude almost had 800 yards last year in 6 games. That's a pretty good average. Like they're finally going to that. Did you see how they changed how they block? By the way, they were gap blocking again. They weren't zone. It was back to the gaps, and I loved it. It started to work. and then they went back to a little bit of zone blocking again. It's like they just can't find themselves with an identity. And I talked to somebody after the game, and they were like, once they were very definitive, and I already told you this, who it is. They're very definitive in their belief, and they said, got to get healthy, got to get Anderson back at wide receiver, got to get Everett and Hickman back, and they felt very sure of themselves that if those guys come back, the offense will open up and be much better for everybody. And it makes sense, but I you still got to get the run game going. You cannot have a good passing game without the run game. And it doesn't need to be Jackson Parker. It doesn't need to be Jackson Arnold being the run game. And that's what we're seeing.
Yeah. Well, and on a lot of occasions, it's Arnold running because he has to, right? There were some
Goes
design
back to
QB
blocking.
runs today. There were obviously some read options, those kinds of things. Usual game plan stuff anytime you have a
Yeah.
quarterback with mobility like Jackson Arnold, but there were also several occasions where he just had to drop back and take off because the
Yeah.
pocket was breaking down.
Or they just didn't get open. There's a lot of some of it receivers just weren't getting open.
Boy, they need Nick Anderson and Andrew Anthony
Yep.
back in the
Yeah, Andrew
worst
Anthony's the
way.
other guy. Yeah.
Yeah, because and I love Zion Reagan's. I think he has such a bright future at Oklahoma, but I think what I said last week about Zion Reagan's holds true. He got the start today, and
Yeah.
good for him. Good for him. That's awesome to be able to rise that high as a freshman and have what appears to be a sustainable role in this offense moving forward. But Zion Reagans is the type of guy that you want to be using for 10, 15 snaps a game, Brandon, not 40,
Yeah.
the way that he has the last couple of weeks. They need Nick
That's
Anderson and Andrew
facts.
Anthony back badly.
Facts. I thought Zion Kearney, I thought he looked halfway
He
decent in a
looked
few of his.
great, actually.
Yeah. He looked really good. He
There's
adds that size that you need. He's not big, but he's bigger.
Yeah,
So, I
it's not
mean,
hard to look at Zion Kearney and figure, yeah, that dude's going to be a monster in a couple
yeah, he's
years,
gonna be good.
and
I
he shouldn't be rushed along as long as
no.
they stay healthy from here on out. He shouldn't be rushed along, and that will be to his benefit.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't want to completely move on necessarily from the offensive discussion, but I do want to give a shout out to the OU special teams units. Peyton Bowen had a nice punt return. Tyler Keldner was 2 for 2 on field goals. Should have been 3 for 3
Yeah.
because he hit from 50 and there was a delay of game penalty on the play. And then Brett Venables decided to punt the football away instead of giving Keltner a shot from 55, which, I'm not going to go to war with Venables over that decision. That's very much an either or. That's a legit 50-50 type decision where uh I mean, in all actuality, it's
Mhm.
probably less than 50-50 the odds that Keltner actually hits from 55 or that any college kicker hits from 55. That's asking a
Mhm.
lot. But that rolls nicely into the job that Luke Elzinga did today because boy, the punt and he had several solid boots, but the punt that immediately followed that delay of game penalty
Yeah, that was
was
awesome.
beautiful. He dropped a lawn dart about 4 inches from the goal line. I mean,
I thought he did hit it.
it could not have been any closer. And that thing, it's like a Tiger Woods hitching wedge to the green.
Mhm.
Had backspin, hits the ground, kicks back, they down it at the 5 yard line. And then it's an immediate 3-and-out for the Tulane offense. Their
Yeah,
punter's a weapon, man.
that
Oklahoma's punter is a weapon.
and then don't forget Jackson Arnold can pooch punt pretty well too. So,
That too.
yeah, so I agree. I think that was that the series where Mensa should have been called for a safety when he threw the ball inside the tackles and there was nobody where he threw it. Like he literally was just throwing the ball away. Was that series?
That is correct. Yes, R.
Yeah,
Mason
that's
Thomas
where our
came
Mason
clean off the
Thomas,
edge.
yeah. That should have I was sitting next to the New Orleans, whatever, it's called, the Picayune Times Picayune or whatever down there.
Uh-huh.
And I was sitting next to their sports guy, and he he was like, "Man, that was a safety. That was a safety. Like Mensa got away with that. Like, how did they not call that a safety?" And I
He
still am
was he
gonna
was
be mad.
barely out of the pocket.
Was he?
Barely, yeah, barely. It was not close, but you could tell on replay. He did get out of the pocket.
Okay. I mean, it just seemed crazy from where we were sitting that he didn't get called for safety. But yeah, I mean that right there with Oklahoma's defense, that's deadly. And but the offense has to capitalize off that too. Like if you're going to win the field position battle more often than not because your punter and your defense are doing their job, I think that's where the frustration even, I guess, exemplifies even more because and magnifies because they're not taking advantage of short fields sometimes. And that's where the frustration goes. But Luke Elzinga is just he's he's been nails for 3 straight weeks. Like that is lethal, and that is going to win Oklahoma a game this year. Field position is going to win Oklahoma a game. I don't know what game, but it's going to win them a game. It might have won them the Houston game, to be honest.
Yeah, well, and if you think that's
Kind of did actually.
and if you think that's hyperbole, keep in mind Georgia just won a 13-12 game at Kentucky tonight.
Yep.
So you will play field position football at times in the SEC, and you will have to win some rock fights.
Yeah. Kentucky 13-12. That who had that on their bingo card this week and their parlay? Guaranteeing nobody. Everybody thought that was going to be a blowout. We talked about on the pregame, but we're like, yeah, we're not even going to talk about the game. It's going to be a blowout. 13-12. Welcome to the SEC. That's why everybody is just riding off Oklahoma with Tennessee, even though it's a home game, because they've been blowing everybody out. And Oklahoma's been, you know what you know what the best analogy is remember Ohio State in 2002, where they just skirted by every freaking game and they won a national title doing it. They didn't look pretty ever. Their offense was awful. They had Claret and that was it. But their defense was so freaking good that they could get away with it.
All right, folks, there you go. Brandon Drums predicting
No,
a national
no, no,
championship for the
no, no,
Sooners.
no, no. That's not where I'm going. Thank you, Parker, for no. OU's not winning a national title. I'm just saying it just kind of reminds me of how sometimes teams will be looked past and like they should lose because their offense isn't that great, but their defense is really good. And they just kind of skirt by every week because they play field position and they win. Their special teams is good. Sometimes it works.
Sometimes it does, and it's looking like it's going to need to work for
Oh,
Oklahoma.
they better
That or
shut
those guys that have been on the
down.
shelf have to come back with a vengeance. Now,
Yeah.
before we get to our MVP picks and wrap it up, I I do want to have one other conversation, and that is the conversation surrounding the offensive line and the personnel therein.
Oh God.
Oklahoma started with Logan Howland at left tackle, Jacob Sexton at left guard. I don't even know if they made it out of the first quarter. Certainly not out of the first half before they switched to Heath Ozida at left guard and
Yeah.
slid Sexton back out to left tackle, which praise the Lord, that's where he belongs. But what do you
Mm,
think the ideal line
mm.
looks like right now?
First off, I'm going to ask you, and I want you to be honest. Don't sugarcoat it.
Okay,
How did 77 look to you?
not ready.
Okay.
He's not ready. I don't think he's ready. I think he will be. I
Well,
think
I
he's gonna
think
have a heck.
there are people
Yeah,
that believe he has a chance to be special. Him and
yeah.
Howland
I think
both.
he's gonna have a heck of a career at
Yeah.
Oklahoma.
Yeah.
But him and Howland are kind of in the same boat for me. Not quite ready. Just
Yeah.
not quite there. I think, and we expect Branson Hickman and Troy Everett back next week.
Yeah.
That's going to be huge for Oklahoma
Oh,
because what that enables you to do is roll with Sexton and Tarquin as your two tackles, have Wee Woo entrenched at right guard, you have Hickman snapping the football, and you slide Everett in and left guard. And hopefully, Brandon, that solves your problems. Hopefully.
oh no, is
But
Tarquin going to line up on the line right? It's like just having
I
an
don't know.
ice pick
I
in
don't
the
know if
eye.
I've
Like,
and
how are you not on the line, dude? You're a tackle.
I've never seen an Oklahoma lineman get penalized for that. I'm sure it's
Twice in
happened
the same
elsewhere.
series.
Did it happen twice?
Yes.
Oh, wow. I for whatever reason, I only caught it the one time, but
No, it was twice. Venables even talked about it. He said twice that we had same person lining up
yeah.
off the line. Like what do you do? I tried to get in there and ask, like, was he just trying to get a head start off on like the edge rusher or something? I don't I'm trying to wrap my head over how you can be and I know there's formations where like you'll put the tight end right as you're like you'll offset things. It'd be kind of, you know, eye candy, trickery, all that type of stuff, cover things up. You know, you cover up a player and one player's uncovered that's not supposed to be, and so they're free, but it's all about looks and all that type of stuff. Um, I thought maybe that's what was happening, but no, they were just in a normal base setting. He just wasn't lined up on the line. I don't know
Yeah.
how that happens, but still, I digress. The best lineup, uh, is everybody healthy, or are we just talking about the best lineup as of today?
I guess that's a good question because obviously next week with Hickman and Everett presumably back in the mix,
Yeah.
those guys fill two very obvious positions of weakness right now for
Mm.
Oklahoma. I I think at that point you get Everett and Hickman back in the lineup. The big question mark for me is Tarquin at right tackle
Yeah.
because he's had some good moments and he's had some bad, but there's going to have to be a lot more good than bad
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
conference play. That's just going to have to happen.
Did you see Bates about fight again when when Arnold got targeted? Which I didn't think the guy should have been kicked out, by the way. He tried to pull up and
Yeah, that
that
was a
was
kind of a
kind of
ticky
cheap.
tack call.
But yeah,
I felt bad for the kid.
me too. But yep, Bates is always trying to fight. Folks, we heard about all this like all for the last 2 years. Like everybody's like, oh, he's got some dog in him. He's got
Well,
some
he got that
nasty. He's
dog in him,
always
all right.
we're always trying to fight. You know all that. You guys are finally seeing it play out in front of you.
That dog's a Rottweiler.
Yeah, he likes to fight. He about wanted to kill the guy that nicked Jackson on the helmet, like barely nicked him. So like I don't. It was funny because
Yeah.
everybody like Jake Sexton walks up and like grabs him and pulls him back, like stop, stop. It's not that
You
serious,
got the
bro.
call. You got the
Yeah,
call. And
yeah.
one could argue you shouldn't even have gotten the call in the first place.
I agree with
But
that. No, they shouldn't have. So
I don't know what a defender is supposed to do in that circumstance when a
particularly because
quarterback is
Jackson
sliding.
runs all the time, right? And he ducks his
Yeah,
shoulder into people.
I
So
I felt bad for the kid that got rung up based on that call. But
yeah,
it is what it is. And Oklahoma went on to get a touchdown on
yep.
that drive. So it worked out for the Sooners, that's for sure. Okay. Offensive, defensive. You know what? I am going to render a ruling for the second straight week that we are allowed to agree
No
on one
quarterback.
of our MVPs because it is very, very
Oh yeah,
obvious who
yeah.
the defensive
Defense.
MVP
Go. Yeah,
was.
yeah. Our Mason
R.
Thomas.
Mason Thomas,
Yeah.
the day belongs to you, sir. Hell of a job.
Tip of the cap, sir. Respect. You
Who you
were
taking on
amazing.
offense?
Mm, I mean, Jackson Arnold won the game for him, so I'll just go Jackson Arnold. That was, I think we both can agree that that's probably the easiest. Like, I think it's pretty cut and dry on both sides of the ball.
Mhm.
Would you
Yeah,
agree with
and
that?
I'll go with the other guy on offense that there is a legitimate case for, and that would be Taylor Tatum. And as D Mac calls him, the puppy, he's
Yeah.
good, and he's having a tough time, as are all those backs right now, finding consistent space to operate in the ground game. But the one thing that Arnold said in preseason camp was that Tatum's going to be able to have a role for this team immediately because of what he brings to the table as a pass catcher. You saw that today. First touchdown reception of the year for an Oklahoma running back. He rushed for
Yeah.
one. He caught one. He had a sweet celebration too after he caught that touchdown pass.
I guess Dion Burks could have been up for, I guess,
Yeah,
he had
7
80.
for 80 for Deion Burks. He
Yeah.
led the Sooners in both of those categories. 7 catches, 80 yards. But
I'll go Jackson. I mean, look, it got dicey, and at the end, he made a play on that scramble that was an amazing run. He had three really, really big runs that just the first touchdown off the botch snap. Then obviously the 47-yarder where he had a great read on that zone read. And then the scramble where he took off and won the game in a critical moment. Made a guy miss out in open space about 15 yards down the field and glided into the end zone, saving the day for Oklahoma. So I'll go with Jackson. I know that people don't like seeing 167 yards passing, but he still was he still was a lot better. And if he can make another big jump between week 3 and week 4, and the defense continues to play the way they play, I think Oklahoma has a chance on Saturday. I'm not predicting them to win just yet, but I think they're going to surprise people, particularly with the guys that we feel are going to be healthy back. I just I don't know. I think everybody's going to be picking Tennessee. They're going to be the hot pick. Everybody's going to say Oklahoma has zero chance to win. Norman's wild and Sooner Magic's crazy. And wouldn't it be nutty if Oklahoma had to pull off something just wild, like a crazy comeback win? I don't know. I don't know. But the night's going to be epic either way, and I
Yeah.
cannot wait, Parker. I'm
And
so excited. We have been waiting for this
oh man, and I
forever.
think and I think what's fun about it too is when was the last time Oklahoma was like very obviously an underdog
At
on their home
home.
field? Yeah.
Uh,
It doesn't happen often. It hasn't happened in years.
no, and
Years. And so,
you have potential top 5 team coming into town, guys. Like
yeah.
it is.
Let's
Are
let's see
we?
what
Are
that
yeah?
Sooner
Are we
Magic
crazy
looks
if we
like in
just say like
2024.
Stutzman called the fans out and said like they need to show up Saturday. They need to show up. They need to not leave. Like, and he was halfway joking, halfway not. He said he understood that the sun was bearing down on that side, but he also said the sun was bearing down on us out on the field the whole game, and we were there, which they had to be. They don't have a choice to leave. I thought that was a funny comment. But like the fans have got to be ruckus that night. Like and I think they will be. I think everybody's been looking forward to this. And I think as the week goes on, you're going to see people. Isn't it kind of funny? Like right now, nobody feels like Oklahoma can win, but as the week goes on, people are going to start getting
Oh,
that. Oh yeah, we're going to have that upset. That positive vibe.
yeah, no, I was gonna say just go ahead, wrap it up, Drum. I'm gonna go watch some tape and start to talk myself into Oklahoma winning this football game. That's the plan for the rest of my evening.
There you go. There you go. I'm done.
Okay, let's call it there.
All right. That's going to do it for this version of the OU Insider Under the Visor Sooners pregame or postgame pod, not pregame, postgame podcast. So we were talking about Tennessee. I thought pregame there for a second,
We'll
but it
have a
is.
pregame podcast for you.
Yeah, we've got some cool content coming for y'all this week. I'm excited about it. Don't want to give it away just yet. We got some cool content. So, yeah, make sure you're tuned into this YouTube channel and our podcast. Make sure you like, subscribe, give us 5 stars, give us thumbs up, whatever you want to do. Hit that notification button. We are almost to 17,000 subscribers on there. Please, please, please help us get to that. Help us get to 20 by the end of the year. That would be awesome. Here on YouTube. Look, the more you guys like, the more you subscribe, the more you view, the more that we can put out content, the more we can go see recruits, the more we can help you guys have better content on this channel. It is for you. We try to do everything for you. So like, subscribe, do whatever you can. Make sure you also go over to ouinsider.com VIP. It's $9.95 a month. $99.95 for the whole year. If you sign up for the whole year, it'll get you all the way through this time in 2025. So you'll get the whole football season, you'll get the whole basketball season, you get the whole softball and baseball season. You'll get both national signing days, you'll get all the spring practices, all the spring game, all the official visits, all the champion barbecue, the party in the palace, all the official visits, all the fall camp, and all the way up for the first 3, 4, 5 weeks into the 2025 season. If you sign up right now, only for $99.95, or if you're a college student and you have a .edu, I don't care if you go to Timbuktu University, you got a .edu. You email us at ouinsider@rivals.com. We will send you a promo code back, and you can get OU Insider for a whole year for just $11.95, which is literally like going and buying a sausage, egg, and cheese biscuit and a Starbucks coffee at Starbucks. Boom, you got us, and you have us for a whole year. Again, ouinsider@rivals.com. You email us from your .edu. It has to be from your .edu. We will send you a promo code. That way you can get OU Insider for $11.95, which is less than $1 a month. We understand that you're struggling as a college student, so we're trying to help you guys out. All right. For Parker Thune, my name is Brandon Drum. Oklahoma won 34-19 over Tulane. We will see you guys later on. Tennessee's up in the SEC.